This program is about a modern war. The primary emphasis is on the men, the terrain, the equipment, and the tactics. But of course, no war is fought in limbo. The motivation behind the small, cruel conflict, as you shall see, is quite complex. Although confined to a relatively small segment of the African continent, the ramifications of this war reach into the ideologies and economies of many nations. The long-term impact of the struggle remains at this point obscure. What is clearly evident, however, is that the combatants have fought long and hard, with the fruits of victory eluding them all.
This is a war in Africa that does not often make headlines. It's a conflict that has been fought for 18 years behind a curtain of near secrecy. Very few outsiders, few reporters on either side have witnessed this war. The fight for control of Namibia, a territory in southern Africa the size of Texas. South African and Namibian forces are fighting the Southwest Africa People's Organization, commonly known as SWAPO. SWAPO is a guerrilla insurgent force trained and armed by the Soviet Union, East Germany, and Cuba. Throughout much of Africa in the past 25 years, country after country has been dramatically reshaped socially and politically. One by one, like dominoes, they have thrown off their colonial status. Political systems in some countries have been altered as a result of Soviet intervention. The Congo in 1960, Angola a year later, Mozambique in 1964. Then, a few years later, came Rhodesia, now called Zimbabwe, with its own war. Now, Namibia stands as the last colonial domino.
The instigation and active support the Soviets have given the Namibian SWAPO rebels has created a serious dilemma for South Africa. Isolated and under very heavy international pressure to abandon its apartheid policy, South Africa found itself faced with the possibility of losing this buffer state between itself and a hostile black Africa.
Namibia, also known as Southwest Africa, is a trust territory administered by South Africa under considerable controversy. The population is estimated at just over 1 million people. South Africa claims to be seeking a formula for a stable disengagement, but obviously none has been found. The main assets of this small country are a deep water port on the route from the Mideast oil countries to Europe and the U.S., and a significant mix of strategic and non-strategic minerals. Almost 2 decades of guerrilla warfare has ravaged their settlements and decimated civilian life along the Angola-Namibian border. Back and forth fighting has left much of the area abandoned or in ruins. The basic infrastructure of villages and towns has been destroyed, destabilizing entire regions. This was the only school within a radius of 40 miles. It was destroyed by SWAPO insurgents. The SWAPO guerrillas infiltrate down from Angola either in a small group or alone. One of the most effective weapons they use is the landmine. It can kill and shock the people, disrupt communications, and keep the military tense and alert. Most of the young men who join SWAPO are recruited from their native villages and taken to Moscow or Havana for training and indoctrination. Since they live in extreme poverty with little or no hope for a better existence, they are easy prey for the offerings of the recruiters. Their training is completed in Angola, and they're sent off on their missions. Most of the guerrillas are taught the skills needed to handle these mines by the large Cuban cadre that is stationed in Angola. Landmines have caused most of the deaths among civilians and soldiers in the Namibian War. Those who must travel in Namibia learn to stay on the fringes of the roads, using the main throughway only when they have been swept and secured. Military forces proceed cautiously along roads in areas where guerrillas are known to be operating. Troops with mine detectors check the routes. Convoys move at a walking pace. When a landmine is discovered, it has to be disarmed or exploded on site. Bomb disposal experts are a special breed of men. This unenviable job requires great patience and carbon steel nerves. Landmines are often set in layers or booby-trapped. One mistake could end in oblivion. Vehicles that are needed in the combat area by both military and civilians have been specially designed and reinforced to minimize the death toll caused by landmines. In spite of the heavy damage to these vehicles, the riders in this one survived with only minor injuries. The war also dominates the lifestyle of Namibians. The young children go to school in mine-protected vehicles under armed escort for their safety. The routine is the same each day, for landmines are a threat to them as well. Children going off to boarding school after a weekend visit home are flown out in an antiquated Air Force Douglas DC-3, still used extensively for transport purposes in this theater of war. The toll among civilians is high. Few adults know how to avoid mines and often stumble onto them or drive on mined roads with tragic results. Teenage children have set off mines while at play. Some have been killed, many wounded. In this instance,